Hello, lovely ladies in the Goddess Creations for Women group. We are on to interview 22 in the Goddess Creations Empowerment Marathon. And I have with me the lovely Dr. Shaler, who is going to be speaking on toxic relationships. Wow. Now, this is the week of relationships that I'm recording these two interviews, and today Dr. Rhoberta Shaler will be talking about toxic relationships. Dr. Rhoberta Shaler is a PhD, the relationship help doctor, who provides urgent and ongoing care for relationships in crisis. Her mission is to provide the insights, information, and inspiration for clients and audiences to transform the relationship with themselves and other human beings to be honest, respectful, and safe in all ways. Even the United States Marines have sought her help. Now, Dr. Shaler focuses on helping the partners, exes, and adult children of the relentlessly difficult people she calls hijackals to stop the crazy making and save their sanity. Author of 16 books, including Escaping the Hijackal Trap and Stop That Crazy Making, she hosts two podcasts, Emotional Savvy and Save Your Sanity. Her YouTube channel ForRelationshipHelp has reached over 290,000 views. Now, she will be sharing with us on how you can recognize and change your toxic relationship with yourself and with others. So let's bring on Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. Hello.
Good
Good to see
morning
you here.
or good day, wherever you
Oh,
happen to be in the world. it's
absolutely.
it's morning here in sunny San Diego.
Yes. And at the time that we're recording this in Central European time, it's 7. Lovely women that are watching, thank you for watching live. If you're watching live, just do a nice hashtag live so that I know you are there. And you might even put your name in the comments so I can feel engaged. We can feel engaged to you. And if you're watching a replay, do a hashtag replay so that we know that you have watched too. And thank you for watching. So, Dr. Roberta Shaler, can I just call you Roberta?
Sure.
Great. Well, we are going to be talking on toxic relationships. What is your connection with this? How did this become the subject or part of the subject of what you do?
Well, like most people, I've had the experience, of course, and the research shows now, Shamna, that everybody's having that experience. Everybody knows somebody who's in the toxic category, whether that's at work or at home or in our past somewhere. So I was an only child of two toxic people. One who wanted a child, one who didn't want a child. So it started there. And coming up in that, I just looked at these two people and thought, there's something very, very wrong here. So I was on my way to medical school when I found out I was pregnant with my first child, and I thought, well, here is a new direction. What shall I do? So I got a doctorate in psychology, so I didn't take a child through the grueling years of medical school. So that's been my focus, is how to help people really understand the relationship that they're in or the relationship they were raised in, and what that recognition causes us to realize the impacts are on our life right now. Whether that happened long ago or it's happening now, it has a huge impact. And then we want to know that we can realign our view, our beliefs, our purpose, our mission, our values, and change all of that so that we can recover and regain our self confidence in order to love and trust again.
Wow. Well, actually, and in a nutshell, in that nutshell, the journey you've taken in having come from a non-healthy or non-ideals, let's just say, parental situation, and therefore, of course, that's part of your blueprint, for you to have the insight, strength, and courage to turn it around and transform your life and actually use it to be part of your personal mission, I must say it's pretty large. Yeah, so wow, well done there, because that's something that many of us don't know how to do, and also that is what you are going to be talking about. So
Exactly.
I would like to know, how can we define what is a toxic relationship? What is that?
Well, a toxic relationship is one that's best defined by my term hijackals, which is my trademark term for this. And you and I were talking about this off air. And the reason that I created this term is too many people were rushing off to Google and saying, my partner or my mother or my boss or whatever behaves this way. And then Google was mistaken for a mental health professional. And Google fed back terms that are clinical, and then you go, oh, now I know what's wrong with that person. They've got this problem. Well, actually, you're in relationship with them, so you have a problem too. So the way that we determine that is the definition of hijackals. These are people who hijack relationships for their own purposes, and then they relentlessly scavenge them for power, status, and control. So we don't need a clinical term for this, Shamna. We just need to know that if we're in a relationship where somebody is all about them, they've got the relationship hijacked for their own purpose, and then it is all about them gaining power, status, and control, we're in a toxic relationship.
Okay, well, many things have entered my head. What is then the clinical term that gets used? I mean, with what you described about someone making it all about them is a phrase that many of us have heard and use almost, well, not daily, I hope, as narcissist. Is that what you are terming as the popular phrase that you will find on Google? And why is that not the same as hijackal?
Well, because narcissistic personality disorder is a clinical diagnosis that has to take place by that particular person going and being diagnosed. Now, we can say somebody, and I know we're splitting hairs here to some people, but it's very important because we can say someone seems to have narcissistic tendencies. It's allaboutthem.com, for instance. That's absolutely okay. But we can't actually say they're a narcissist if they're not diagnosed. So I just decided that whether people find that they go to Google and they read the term narcissist or sociopath or psychopath or borderline or histrionic, those definitions are not going to be helpful because they're not actually accurate. You may be talking about one or two traits or patterns that somebody has, but they may not have a disorder. So I just tried to back it off, Shamna, and say, okay, we're in the relationship or we suffered through the relationship. What did it leave us with? What are the patterns, traits, and cycles, and what do we do about it? And let's just stay far away from the clinical.
Okay, so then back to the hijackal. So you have, can you just repeat that definition that you said, just to make that difference between the popular term and how you would describe? Because I would then say, and I do pray that we don't all have a hijackal in our life, because it's quite a heavy definition. Can you just run that by us again?
Sure. Sure, a hijackal is a person who hijacks a relationship for his or her own purposes and then proceeds to relentlessly scavenge the relationship for power, status, and control. And I'll just add something to that. These people paint a public picture of perfection while at home they're creating a private place of pain.
Wow.
So if that resonates with anyone listening, oh, they're charming, wonderful. And if you say something about them in the community, someone says, oh, how can you say that? They're so lovely. And you're thinking, oh, you should be at home experiencing this person. That's why.
Wow. And then again, what's entering my head is, how do we then know that we have a hijackal versus someone who is just not looking at their own personal growth, be it the one that feels victimized or the person that is then doing it? How, because that also the unwillingness to look at your own personal growth can also make you act less pleasant, let's say, in a relationship, versus, as you said, that relentless. Well, I'm going to ask you about that. The relentlessly. How do we discern that? So,
Well, let me say this. First of all, a hijackal is never self-reflective. So if they're actually a hijackal and you tell them something you'd like to discuss with them or something's going sideways, it will be all your fault and it will be completely you who are the author of it. And everything that you say to them, they will twist to make it your fault. So, and as we have this conversation, I'm sure people will recognize these traits and patterns and then know completely whether or not they're dealing with a hijackal. Because haven't we all had somebody who persistently behaves in these ways? Every one of us is somebody's idea of a difficult person on some day. Difficult people are different than toxic people. Toxic people are like that to you, maybe not to other people, people out in the work field or whatever, but to you at home, they are toxic. They may behave beautifully in public.
I see. So it's actually the person that has the mask is what you were actually saying. The where of whom other people say, "What are you talking about? He's a nice guy," or she's a nice woman. But I mean, since we're in a woman's group, he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
And actually, whereas what you get to see at home is less pleasant.
Oh, much less pleasant. Hijackals have to win in all circumstances, at all times, because they're very fragile beings. Now, ladies, don't go out there and put on your compassion hat right this second and say, oh, the poor thing, they've had a terrible childhood. I will love them to health. No, you won't. You cannot do that. They are impervious to that. They will take everything you have and give you very little. They will only give things to you when they really want something from you. That's what we call love bombing. They will love bomb you when they're afraid you're going to leave them or when they really want something. The rest of the time, they'll be cold and dismissive and self-involved.
Hmm. And so, wow. So even the things you mentioned, I'm like going, so is there like this checklist of 10 points, and that if you have six of the 10, you have a hijackal, and if you only have three of them, it's just a difficult relationship? Is that, could
No.
you,
No,
oh, just making
actually,
this a leeway for these women so that they go, oh no, I'm surrounded by.
well, yes. I mean, first of all, if somebody persistently has one of them, then they're going to have the others some of the time. So, they always have to win. They always have to be right. They're always going to be blaming. They're always going to be finding fault, demeaning and degrading and belittling you, even when it doesn't matter. They just do it as a matter of course to keep control in the relationship. They're going to be negative. They're going to and they have this thing, what I call incredulity. And I have a whole program about this. And the incredulity, like they say things, and here's the incredulity. They say or do something, and your internal self goes, who does that? Who says that? and
Hmm.
and you're just kind of shocked. And at that moment of cognitive dissonance, you usually don't speak up because of what's happened in your brain.
Yeah.
And then, you're a nice person. You've been raised to be a polite woman, and you don't say anything. You don't catch them out or put them down. But you're just in that shock moment, like, oh, I don't want to be around a person who thinks that or behaves like that or says that out loud. But then you start immediately making excuses for them. Oh, they're having a bad day. Oh, they're unhappy. They have stress. And this is where we have to get very, very clear. When you start seeing these patterns for what they are, these are not patterns of occasional stress. This is a person who has had an upbringing that led them to believe this is the way to survive in the world. And they do it, and you can't change it.
But what does that then say about the person that has attracted such a hijackal? What type of woman attracts a hijackal?
Well,
Because isn't,
there are a
wouldn't you then say
few.
that our upbringing has also then failed for us to not be able to perceive that?
Well, if you have been raised in a home where there's a hijackal, because of our brain development, I think we all know that our brain grows until we're 30. And the first 5 to 6 years, very, very important, because up until that time, we're taking everything in emotionally. We're not like horses and cows. We don't get spit out of our mothers and they lick us off and then we leap up and run around the meadow. We're a blob. We know we need to be taken care of. We know we can't move. We know we can't feed. We know we can't do those things. So in that period of time when your brain is growing, if you were raised by a hijackal, you've been raised in the fear of being left, abandoned, neglected. Will they like me? Do they smile at me when I smile at them? Do they come when I need them to come? And you are learning, we call it attachment style, but you are learning how you fit into all of this, and that follows you. So if you had a hijackal parent or an abusive parent of any kind or a neglectful parent, and that maybe have just come from a large family where you didn't get much airtime, but that will make you attractive to a hijackal. The other thing they like, which people don't realize, is some of them like a challenge. They'll go after a really strong woman and they'll look for her vulnerabilities. They'll do everything they can to get her to disclose to them what she's afraid of or what her weaknesses are, and thinking that they're building emotional intimacy. That's what the woman's thinking. And then they just exploit those vulnerabilities and tear them down. I'll give you a little story. I was working with a client. The woman was a medical doctor. The man was an entrepreneur. They came in and he said things like this. They just had a baby. The baby was about 8 months old. He said, I can't trust her with anything. I can't trust her with the baby. I can't trust her to call a plumber. I can't trust her with anything. I said, well, and isn't that odd when the whole world trusts her with their children to operate and hold their hearts in their hands, and you can't trust her with your child? So, he was all puffed up, this hijackal, like, everybody is stupid except me. And here we're dealing with a woman who was being exploited because English wasn't her first language. And so he decided that he would exploit that and make her feel less than. And that happens.
And you saying that last bit about the language, I have seen in many combined not racial, what did you say, combined continental, let's say, relationships where that does happen, where, and I can't even voice it because I don't want to make it things too general, but we
Yeah.
do. I'm sure many of us recognize that pattern,
Yeah.
and I was getting goosebumps as you were talking about that
Well, hijackals are very
manipulation.
parental. They're very parental. You get into a relationship, we women get into a relationship looking for a partnership. And if we get into a relationship and we find that what we've acquired is somebody who turns into a nasty parent, that's a big red flag, you
But
know?
does that then say something without pointing fingers at us women or making us small? But doesn't that say something about our antennae and how they are working? Because you did say
Sure,
that part of it gets programmed by our own upbringing and what we have learned to
absolutely.
see. Because so that would also make us attract the hijackal, is that not?
Oh, absolutely. We are hijackal bait if we have been raised by a hijackal or we have been raised in a home where there's neglect, because there's a part of us longing to be seen, heard, known, acknowledged, appreciated, and accepted. And a hijackal will swoop in and love bomb you. They will come in and they almost can smell the fact that you want something, you need something from them. So then they will love bomb you. They will be a chameleon. They will be everything you ever wanted and needed. It's like they have a second knowledge of you. They give you exactly what you want and you feel so known. And
Yes.
then there's what I call in the book, Escaping the Hijackal tab, I call it the whole chapter called the gotcha factor. As soon as they got you, they got you nailed down, they've got you living with them, pregnant, sharing finances, taking care of them. As soon as they are marrying them, as soon as the gotcha kicks in, and I had that in one case, Shamna, The gotcha factor kicked in 1 hour after the wedding reception. The guy didn't come back for 3 days. So when that gotcha, then it's a slow decline usually. But for many unfortunate people, it's a fast decline into them now behaving however they want to, which is their natural state, and beginning to demean and degrade you and
Because the bait,
devalue you.
you took the bait, and that's it.
Well, they kind of have a disdain for you because, oh, look what I was able to do. You didn't even notice what I did. So they're already putting you down in their mind because you've fallen for them. And so, that's why they like the challenging woman, because they have to work a little bit harder and be a little more devious, but then she'll fall further, and that really delights them.
So, I mean, I have to now keep my mind in focus here because I am so taken aback by what you are saying because it sounds like a very horrible film that these are films I used to watch on TV, and yet they are in real life. How you did say the hijackal has come from such a relationship, you often upbringing often. The victim has come from an upbringing with such energy. So this pattern does keep continuing. How do we stop that if we happen to be in such a relationship? How do we recognize it? How do we break from it?
Well, first of all, we learn to see these. you know, there are red flags that when we are dating, we have on our rose colored glasses, and maybe you still have them on. But hopefully today you will whip them off so that you can actually see the red flags. So stop pretending that this behavior is going to change. Stop pretending that it is your fault. They're telling you everything is your fault. Stop believing it. Start stepping back and looking at this, saying, really, now everything is my fault. In the bright light of day, is that actually the truth?
Hmm.
Well, no, it isn't. It isn't. And have you become a person who is scurrying around quietly, trying to make them happy, trying not to upset them, trying to do all of that? And how do you feel doing that? How do you feel being the disempowered person who is trying to please someone who's dedicated to not being pleased? What is going on there with you? Maybe it's a pattern that you learned. Maybe you had a very um, hijackal father that don't upset him, he's had a bad day, don't make noise, don't do this, don't do that, and you're kind of ready for it. Look at the patterns you were raised in and see, have I developed a pattern where I think that I am less than they are? What their needs are is more important than my needs. What their perception of the world is more accurate than mine. Gaslighting is a big deal. Gaslighting is defined this way by me: when someone wants to define your reality for you, when someone tells you what you think, feel, need, want, or remember. And they say, oh no, I know you better than you know yourself. It
Oh
was
yeah.
like this. And you go, no, it wasn't, but am I mistaken? Am I losing my mind? That's exactly where they want you to be. They want you to question yourself. So step back and look at those things. Are these things sounding like they could be happening in your relationship? Are you always being blamed? Are you always being demeaned? Do they take pot shots at you in public? Do they say things and then if you would be sensitive to it, they say, oh, look at you, I'm just kidding. But they got the
And
shot in.
And that's it. Actually, what you're saying here, Roberta, is all of these things in a row, you think, nah, no one has all of that. But it's not about the
Right.
all of that. They just have to have, or even if they have the one and that one gets repeated, that is what makes them the hijackal, is what you're actually saying. Even if it is the snidey remarks in public, I'm just
Well,
kidding. I'm just
that's
kidding. I'm just kidding. But it's not because it's repeated and it makes you feel less.
well. Let me just add something to that. Those snide remarks in public are what we call passive aggressive behavior. All hijackals are passive aggressive, but some people are just passive aggressive. They're not a hijackal. So we need to make that distinction. You know, I wrote
Yeah.
a book called Stop That's Crazy Making, and it's about passive aggressive behavior. We want to make that distinction. All hijackals are passive aggressive, but not all passive aggressive people are hijackals. So passive aggressive people are people who will not say something straight out. They are afraid of conflict. They want to please you in the moment, knowing full well they're not going to do what they said they're going to do. They just don't want to risk conflict, but their internal anger and resentment shows up as taking pot shots at you in public. Say you're having a lovely dinner party and everything seems fine, and then all of a sudden your husband says something like, well, you know, you probably don't know this, but she's afraid of the dark. Isn't that ridiculous? And they disclose something like that in public, and you feel like, oh, how could you possibly do that? And you try and put a good face on it, but you're so hurt. And they, you thought that you disclosed that to them in an intimate moment, getting closer to them, and they weaponized it and used it against you. Passive aggressive people do that. All hijackals will do that. So there's a prime example of where the overlap is, that these people have to win. So they want power over you, power,
And where is the
control.
difference then? Where is then the difference between the passive aggressive and the hijackal? Because I recognize the passive aggressive, but what would then define? I mean, and I know it's your term, so we don't need to define or pull apart or question the phrase hijackals. It is the energy. And so going back to my previous question, how can we break that pattern?
Well, first of all, it's inner work. First of all, you have to ask yourself, okay, I'm going to have a cold light of day look at my relationship. And often you need some help to do this, because I tell my clients, and I work by video conferencing, so I have clients all over the world, so this is prevalent in every culture I've found, that you're a fish in a bowl filled with water on a table in a room, in a house, in a country. What you can see is very different than what somebody who can help you can see.
Mm.
So it's very important to consider getting help to see it more clearly, more quickly. But know that, first of all, you have to take stock of what's really going on. And then if you find in your mind that you are making excuses, rationalizations, justifications for their behavior, and you look at it and you say, this is a pattern. I'm always saying they're too busy, they're too stressed, they had a bad childhood, they're feeling less than. I'm here to shore them up. Notice if that's a pattern, because you don't want to be in an unequal relationship. I talk about all the time, there are 3 things that have to exist in order to have a healthy relationship of any kind. That's equality and equity, reciprocity, and mutuality. And if you don't have equality and equity, you've got a problem right there. If you don't have reciprocity, that's not a tit for tat scoreboard kind of thing. It means that I can count on you. I could ask you for something and you would tell me if you would or could do it. And you can ask me and I would tell you, and you're my person. You're the first person I go to, right? And then mutuality, that we know each other well enough to know what's on each other's hearts and what we're striving for, and that we support each other to go in that direction. We have each other's back. We not only walk beside each other, but we have each other's back. And so if there's equality and equity, reciprocity and mutuality, then we have a hope of creating a healthy relationship. But if there isn't, then it's not healthy. It has no hope of being healthy. And then in my book, Kaizen for Couples, I talk about the 5 relational gifts. Now, if these aren't present in your intimate relationship, these may not be present in your parental relationship or your work relationship or your sibling relationship. But if these are not present in your intimate romantic relationship, then you're going to have trouble. So, first of all, you need the three: the equity, equality, reciprocity, and mutuality. Then, in your intimate relationship, you need the five relational gifts that I talk about in Kaizen. And those are honesty, safety, trust, respect, and reliability. So, if we don't have honesty, safety, trust, respect, and reliability, we have to work on that. And a hijacker will not work on that with you, because they will tell you that you don't deserve to have those things. You're not good enough to have those things. You never give those things. They will twist it and turn it, and it is impossible. So, if this is kind of new to you, ask yourself those questions. Are you, in fact, having these qualities in your relationship? Or do you have most of them? Because if you have most of them, you're in better shape. Maybe you just need to work on one of them. But if you don't have them, then you need to kind of wake up and smell the herbal tea, you know?
Well,
I, this is not going anywhere good. And that's where it's very important to get in touch and say, I've been putting a really good face on this. I've been putting a whole lot of whipped cream on top of something that is really manure underneath. And what happens, of course, is manure is warm and it will always melt the whipped cream.
that's an interesting metaphor right there. Yeah. So when we have defined that we don't have these, eight pillars or in the relationship, and I think we all ladies need to go back and just tick those off and have that little conversation with ourselves. When we find out, when we have faced, put our deep shadow into the light, how do we take steps in a safe way to extricate ourselves from this toxic relationship? Because if it is toxic, it's going to be, I believe, it's like trying to swim when there is a stone on your feet. How
Mm-hmm.
do you get out of it?
Well, there's two big watchwords here that I tell my people. First of all, you have to practice, and then you have to prepare. And if there's sexual or physical abuse, get out. But if there is emotional and verbal abuse, financial and spiritual abuse, and there usually is financial abuse, then this is where the practice comes in. We work together to find out what it is that made this okay for you on any level. And we allow you to start practicing a new way of thinking about yourself, some new skills, some new ways of responding. And in that practicing, you find out, well, what can fly and what can't fly? Does this make a difference? Does this make it tolerable? Because there's no one answer, Shamna. There's no one answer to the question that people ask me in my Facebook groups and all the time. Do I have to leave? Should I leave? I don't know. I don't know until I talk to you. I don't know what your background is. I don't know what your situation is. I don't know the ages of your children. I don't know what you could move on to. I don't know what resources you have. Every person is different. And the actual research, supports the fact that women and men, but we're speaking to this audience, women generally leave up to 7 times before they stay gone.
You mean
And
emotionally leave, or are we talking about physically
no,
leave?
they physically leave the relationship, but they come back. And that's because hijackals hoover. they they don't like loss, and you represent a loss to them. So they may say, yes, go, who cares, you're not worth the time of day. But then they'll come back. They'll go off, and they're usually grooming somebody else. They've usually, if they're not having affairs, they're grooming other potential people. They can't stand to not have a relationship. That's why you'll leave one of them and they'll show up on Facebook with the love of their life within 15 minutes. They can't can't stand that. But they'll come back and they'll hoover. So they will show up as that love bombing person that you met in the first place, and you'll think, oh, I've been mistaken. I was hooked on hope that that person I fell in love with would return. And then there they are hoovering me. They're love bombing. They're being that person I fell in love with. Oh, it must be me. It must be me. So we go back. It's very natural. Don't beat yourself up if that happened to you. That's a whole learning curve, and it's a spiral. You're not going to learn it the first time round, perhaps.
Well, I do have a question concerning this because suppose you as a woman are listening to this, watching this video, and you recognize things in your relationship concerning that, and yet you also think, but hang on, my partner is not doing all of that, and or is not the person that would have the woman waiting for him the moment you leave the door or whatever. So there is that fine line of who is and who isn't, and I guess that's when you have to go into your red flag zone and find out what am I ready to accept, and what does that and actually it's not so much pointing the finger on the spotlight of who is, but more like who do I want to be. I think that's that would, because otherwise we're
Yes.
so busy with that checklist that
Hmm.
we will stay put because not all of the points can be ticked, whereas that's not the point. Actually, is I believe the point is more who do we want to be
Well,
in that.
you bring up a really good point, Shamna, because people will say to me, my mother was a hijackal. She was horrible. I've gone no contact with her. I haven't talked to her in 5 years, but I just got word that she's dying. What should I do? And my response is always the same. Who are you? And the person will say, what do you mean? What do you mean? I say, who are you? What kind of a human are you? What can you do without regret? There is no right answer to whether you should go and talk to that mother or forgive that mother or reconnect with that mother. There is no right answer. Who are you now? Have you become self aware to know what your values are, what your vision for your life is, what your beliefs about everything are, and how the world works are? Who are you now? Make the decision from that. Be as informed as you possibly can, but be as informed from the inside out.
Exactly. Well, this is a beautiful empowerment journey, let's say, in recognizing a toxic relationship. And also, you have given us tips, at least to recognize it. And also, what you said, if it's, uh, you said two P's, you said
Practice.
practice and prepare. That is if you are in a relationship where you are not getting the physical, let's say, so you might have time to do the analyzing and the personal development work to be able to extricate yourself or
Well,
change it in a better way.
there's one other piece in the prepare. I just want to highlight that because hijackals hide money. Hijackals like to take control of the family finance, and they will have offshore accounts. They will hide money. They will do all kinds of things that you have to prepare for. They may or may not have taken your name off things. A lot of the preparation is on many levels. So, in that word prepare is not only prepare yourself and do your inner work, but you have to prepare. You don't want to walk out of something and be a disempowered mess sitting on a floor going, well, at least I got out. If there is physical or sexual abuse, yes, get out. That's empowering. But if there isn't, prepare. Know the situation, know where the money is, have an account of your own, get money into it, deal with these things so that you leave in the best shape possible. You've practiced all these new skills, you've found out, a deep understanding of yourself and what you want and what you need and who you are and what your values and vision for your life is. You've practiced the skills of changing the communication and conflict management to see what works, and then prepare what your next best step is. And that includes the financial piece.
Right. Well, that was a beautiful bit right there because that is it. You have the practice, you have the prepare, and really, and then actually, and take the action needed, to get out of that old rut. And many of us, we are not alone in all of this. So I would almost say, how do we recognize and how much percentage are the hijackals in the world? But it doesn't matter, because that's then once again looking on the outside. Your body, I believe, will then tell you whether you are in a relationship that is serving you or not. I guess that is actually what it is, us building up that own inner resolve to allow ourselves to recognize and to say no. Or what is it? What did you call it? Stop the crazy making. Isn't that one of your phrases?
Yes, yes, stop. That's crazy making.
Yes.
Because being with these people is crazy making. They cause you to second guess yourself and question your sanity. That is one of the things that they purposefully do. They want to make you feel, can I be certain? They love to create chaos and confusion and uncertainty. They traffic in it because they want to be the author of everything. And when you take back your life, when you sit back and you say, I'm going to look at this from a different point of view, not from the front line, what I'm feeling at the moment. I'm going to take a longer view. Is this okay with me? Is what's going on in this relationship a good model for my children to see of what a relationship
Mm.
is best to look like? If those questions are answered, am I feeling valued? Am I feeling equal? If those questions begin to have negative answers, then it's time for some inner work. It's time to say, perhaps I'm in the wrong place, much as I don't want to say that. Much as that sounds like a whole lot of work, and I'm really worn down and torn down and put down,
Mm.
and I don't know where I'm going to summon that energy from. You
And
don't have
yet,
to do it instantly, but you
exactly.
do need to begin the journey.
Exactly, because once you do take that journey, you are building up your backbones to be able to move on, and you will then strengthen. Thank you, Dr. Roberta Shaler. Where can we find you to get more information? Right there. So just say it out loud so those are
Yes,
doing
go
the
to
audio.
transformingrelationship.com or come there and you can click on podcasts and videos. It will take you to my podcast, Save Your Sanity, Help for Toxic Relationships. And it will also take you to my YouTube channel for FOR Relationship Help, HELP. And that will get you everywhere you need to go and get us chatting with each other. I also have a membership site, $5 a month, safely off social media if you need to talk about these things and you don't want to wonder if your hijackal's lurking in the group somewhere. Come on over. You'll see on the website it's called Circles, and just click on that, join in for $5 a month, and there you can ask me questions directly.
Wow, that is so amazing. Well, I must say I have learned a lot about how to recognize, and which makes me think that the percentage of hijackals out there is a bit larger than we would like to admit.
It
And also,
is.
oh gosh, and
And
I would like,
growing, growing.
and well, let's just end there. Why is it growing? That's a very big thing there. Why is
Well,
it growing?
because hijackals have children, because people live in a lot of stress and they take it out at home. So many reasons, but the
Mm.
numbers are growing. There's also an entitlement issue. We went through a time where we raised entitled children, and that can push people over the edge into hijackal land.
Ah.
So there are many reasons, but the research does show the numbers are growing.
Well, that is a shame that we have to end the interview on that line. And yet, we have also the grace and gratitude that we have these interviews that can raise awareness. And also, once again, this there are places, circles, people that trained people that can help us in this situation. So yes, the awareness will also make us be able to break that pattern. Thank you, Dr. Roberta Shaler, for sharing with us. Is there anything that you would like to close with in the end?
Yes, I'd just like to share something that I think can really help. And that's a little formula that I have. And the formula is ABB. I guess it's not a formula, it's an acronym. But what ABB stands for is always believe behavior. No matter what someone says, if it's not in alignment with what they do, believe their behavior. And that's absolutely key when you're looking at the behavior of a hijackal.
Wow, that is amazing to end with that. Thank you very much. Lovely
Oh, you're
lady.
so welcome. Thank you, Shamna.
Yeah. And thank you, lovely ladies, for watching. We look forward to seeing your comments, questions in the group and also outside. And thank you, Roberta Shaler, for sharing with us these very important things concerning um, toxic relationships and how we can break the pattern. So thank you very much. And I will be seeing you on our next interview. And I wish you a lovely day. Thank you very much.